Hi, I'm your host, Linda Thompson, and thanks for connecting with us. At Buzz, we aim to normalize cannabis through content, community, and conversation. And today we're talking with an executive from High Tide, a company that is focused on cannabis retail in Canada. Welcome, Andy. How are you?
Hey, Linda, how you doing? Nice to
I'm
meet you.
I'm great. Andy Palalas is the CRO, which is the Chief Revenue Officer at High Tide. Who is High Tide, Andy? Tell me about High Tide.
Hey, yeah, well, thanks for having me on, first of all, Linda. Appreciate the time. Yeah, High Tide's been around in the Canadian cannabis space for a good long while. Actually, we started off as a little smoke shop selling smoking accessories in Calgary in 2009. We blossomed into one of the largest chains of that nature in the country over the next 10 years. And we opened up Canna Cabana here in 2018 upon legalization. So we've got about 35 retail locations coast to coast. We operate in 3 provinces right now. And we also manufacture and distribute smoking accessories. So, you may know some of our brands like Famous Brands and Smoking Pounds and Puff Puff Pass, and these are available at retailers across the country. We also distribute them in the U.S., and we own an e-commerce business called Grass City, which has been selling bongs and pipes and vaporizers. It's the largest of its kind, and it's been around since 2001. So it's the oldest and largest, and it's based out of Amsterdam. So lots of stuff goes on at High Tide, but all of it's focused around smoking accessories and cannabis retail.
Wow, congratulations. That's quite the portfolio. Canna Cabana, I've been to one of your store openings in Toronto and certainly have enjoyed, walking the store, the experience and the feel. But in your own words, describe the Canna Cabana brand.
Yeah, it's a great question. So our tagline is "Everybody has a cabana." And for us, that meant creating a sophisticated and playful environment for cannabis enthusiasts. In fact, the same cannabis enthusiasts we've been serving since 2009 to come and enjoy a space that was inclusive and steeped in cannabis culture. So when I look at Canna Cabana, I think about our legacy in the Canadian cannabis market. I think about the customers that we've served, over the last 10, 12 years. And when you come to Canna Cabana, you're going to get an experience that's knowledgeable, that's referential to, cannabis history that's certainly extended long before 2018. And at the same time, is there to inform and welcome new users of cannabis while also respecting those customers that have brought us to where we are today.
Well, that's quite a few customers. So could you describe a Canna Cabana customer for me?
That's a really great question, Linda, because I remember going back to legalization. There was a lot of conversation around who the cannabis consumer was going to be.
Hmm.
There's a very famous Deloitte study that had come out. There was a lot of speculation in the retailer community about, upper middle class, so on and so forth. We were kind of sitting in the back row going, boy, that sure doesn't look like the people who are, buying our bongs today. So I think we called our shot early days that cannabis consumers were going to continue to be cannabis consumers that come from all walks of life, but they're united by one thing. The majority of our users that come to Canna Cabana already have some experience with cannabis. They're already cannabis consumers. And when they come in, we very quickly realized that our strategy of talking to them about, products in a way that referenced this and went a little bit deeper than just what is THC or CBD or indica or sativa, did connect with them. The fact that we're able to talk about, where the genetics, came from on a specific strain, or make reference to some of the cannabis pop culture that they've been steeped in over, a very long period of time. I think they appreciate.
Well, I'm sure that they do, and I'm sure they appreciate that bud tender experience. I'm going to ask you, what makes a good bud tender?
Oh, wow. Um, I've met a lot of different bud tenders. So that's the first thing. We've got a lot of diversity in our bud tender crew. And I think that that's actually a little secret sauce to our success.
Hmm.
We don't hire one type of bud tender. I think creating a deeply personal experience with the plant for the customer and being able to, reference one's own experience with cannabis is really critical. And it's challenging to navigate because there are rules that, we have to adhere to, put in place by Health Canada. So telling somebody about why they should maybe try a certain strain, or, why they personally enjoy a certain thing, can be tricky. A bud tender who's able to properly create that personal experience and to connect a customer with a plant, or connect a customer with a brand, while keeping in mind those regulations and rules, that's an effective bud tender.
That's great. And so we're talking bud tenders, we're talking retail, lots of shops open across the country, and COVID. So
Sure.
your bud tenders are probably not doing a whole lot of talking right now, and your stores are probably selling in a different way. How has COVID impacted your business?
Yeah, well, COVID has impacted every business, and we're very blessed that we have, an incredible staff that's gone to work every day, supported their customers, supported their communities, and on our end, we've done everything we possibly could to, keep our staff safe. Early days, we would drive. I was driving around Ontario trying to find PPE and hand sanitizer, and dropping it off at stores, and store managers and store staff by extension, appreciate that kind of thing to make sure that our staff stay as safe as they can be. On the
Mhm.
customer side, we've doubled down on social distancing measures, obviously, which is a big deal, especially in some of our higher volume stores. You look at it from a retail perspective, we can probably only serve maybe half the customers we were able to in that really high volume store. But we have to go that direction to make sure that our customers are safe, that there's enough space in between them in the store, and that people aren't crowding in on top of each other, and everyone feels comfortable. So as a retailer, we've made the adjustments we needed in order to ensure the safety of our customers and our bud tenders. But I mean, what can I say? I got to shout it out to our bud tenders. They've been our rock throughout this pandemic. They continue to be, a world-class group of cannabis enthusiasts that go to bat every day for Canna Cabana, and the results speak for themselves. We've been, I want to say, among the top or the top retailer when it comes to uptime of our stores. We've been able to blessedly avoid, too many closures or condensation of hours or contraction of hours. So condensation, but yeah, so we're grateful for that.
That's great. You just, if I read the news correctly, you just opened a shop in Niagara Falls, which is a very popular tourist destination, attracts millions of visitors every year in normal
Yes.
circumstances. So you probably opened in a different way. Tell me a little bit about that. How did you open the shop?
Yeah, so Niagara Falls is personally the store that I've been most excited to open. We purchased the building about a year and change ago. So it's right at the top of Clifton Hill. It's right next to Starbucks. There's an ATM drilled into the wall. So like it's the ultimate cannabis retail store. It's 2 minutes from the border.
Hmm.
Anybody coming to Niagara Falls is coming to Canna Cabana for cannabis when they're coming to Niagara Falls. Because right
Hmm.
now Niagara Falls is pretty sparse, as you might
Hmm.
imagine, given the current COVID situation. So that being said, we've opened up with click and collect. Now we have tap, so you can come in and pay cashless.
Oh,
The
good.
store, we're still building out all of our showroom. I mean, realistically, now is not necessarily the time to walk a group of customers through the showroom. So they can come in and get out pretty quickly to help with that kind of COVID time programming. But by the same token, we also just opened delivery in Niagara region. So we are delivering cannabis all across Niagara. And that store, I can almost assure you this time next year will be, if not our busiest, definitely in our top three busiest stores.
Well, that's great. And so, how's Click and Collect working out for you as a retailer? What are your thoughts on Click and Collect post COVID?
Yeah, click and collect was, I think, a really singular point in our company's history, because we started our integration and partnership with Dutchy, who I'm sure you're familiar with, back in January, long before really COVID was beginning to impact our operations, and so it kind of came to a point right at the right time where Dutchy had come online across our ecosystem. And the key point about click and collect that maybe is lost on some retail customers is that we went from just allowing click and collect in store to requiring online transacting. So in Ontario, for example, you had to be able to transact online. Couldn't bring your debit card into the store, couldn't bring your credit card into the store. That connection was accomplished in 48 hours. I don't think anybody slept. We were, there working with our partners, Mirko and Dutchy, to just get everything connected and make sure that our customers could transact the next day. And by golly, they could. And so to us, that was a huge accomplishment, being able to allow our customers to buy online the very next day by connecting those two processes. And click and collect for us has been very good. Very good. We've been able to, for example, in our Hamilton location, sustain our revenues and really turn on a dime from an in-store model where 30% of people were paying with cash to, an online model where everyone had to pay by debit or card. Our customers have been very understanding. They've been very patient with us. They've made arrangements on their own, whether they needed to go buy a prepaid card or whatever the situation is. They've shown immense support for Canna Cabana, to which we're very grateful.
That's great. Well, that's very positive. Let's talk a little bit about retailing because you're a pretty big presence in Alberta, and growing in Ontario with the new store openings. What's the big difference between retailing in Ontario and retailing in BC or in Alberta?
Um, from a regulatory perspective, I would say that Ontario is a little bit more relaxed with the way that they manage, their oversight of stores, right? Just in terms of really some fringe differences, like early days, Ontario was a-okay with us selling rolling trays and Alberta was not. So obviously that had some impact to our supply chain. There's some rolling papers we can sell in Ontario that we can't sell in Alberta. So little wrinkles like that mean
Mhm.
that sometimes rolling out, national programs and promotions is a little bit challenging. But if I want to tell you the real difference between those two provinces, it's the consumers, because everything for us starts with the customer. And there are differences between the ways that customers like to buy in Ontario versus how they like to buy in Alberta. There's differences in what connects with them here versus connects with them in Alberta. Ontario has a much more prominent black market history, right? People were just buying from gray market dispensaries nearing legalization here, and that was just part of the culture. Whereas in Alberta, that's somewhat less so. So there's different ways that those customers want to be spoken to. There's different hot button issues. There's different products that sell well in Ontario versus Alberta. So it's understanding those customers and their preferences and making sure that we don't lump them together, because they need a very different group of products and a different treatment.
Wow, that's interesting. That could be a whole other conversation, I'm sure. That's a very interesting observation. If there was one regulation that you could change in Ontario, not across the country necessarily, but in Ontario, that would help you drive your business forward, what would that be?
Well, I want to applaud the decision to enable delivery and online transacting, curbside pickup for cannabis retailers. It was a pretty scary 2 days, when we were unable to open, and
Hmm.
then the government turned on a dime and allowed us to start doing business again. And honestly, I'm very grateful for that. A regulation that I wish they would, for me, the most pressing and urgent change has to happen at the enforcement of gray market, black market, whatever you want to call it, cannabis retail in Canada and specifically in Ontario. We still have notable brick and mortar gray market, black market locations open in Toronto, for example. Online is dominated, search terms dominated by black market, gray market providers, and every opportunity they have, they come out, and it's very challenging to capture market share from those groups because they have access to a lot more promotional tools than, of course, legal cannabis retailers do, and b, we're actually very excited about the products that have come into the legal channel over the last 6 to 8 months. I think legal cannabis is better today than it's ever been. The quality's come way up. Early days, people were completely complaining about dryness and maybe not so potent cannabis, but the market has demanded better of licensed producers, and they've responded. We have great products at great prices available. Case in point, even some of the value stuff like Daily Special and Dealer's Pick and TWD from the big guys, really high quality products. But when you've got black market producers sourcing cannabis from wherever, and not having to deal with a margin spread between, for example, the AGCO or AGLC and then retailers, it's very challenging to compete with those price points, right? Because we pay for things like safety, ensuring the safety of our products and quality standards, right? There's a sticker on every legal product that lets you know that this is a Health Canada approved product, right? So these are the things that we pay for in the legal channel, and the government has determined is important for the safety of Canadians and to make sure we've got a high quality cannabis industry and product. And when it's not being enforced diligently enough on the other side of the equation, on the black market side, it's damaging because they skirt the rules, and they don't have any of these assurances in place. And a consumer, could probably say, okay, well, I'm going to pay less and not have those assurances. And that's a difficult thing to compete with. I'm not saying, listen, those people are not bad and wrong. Our gray market, black market producers, they're not bad and wrong. Many of them fought long and hard for the legalization of cannabis, and frankly, we owe something to those people who put their livelihoods and their careers on the line to go out and lobby and campaign for the product that we make our livelihood on today. At the same time, though, the onus is on the government to make sure that there's adequate opportunities for those people to enter the legal channel. And at some point, as the country in the world on the leading edge of cannabis legalization, setting the standard for how we roll this out, we have to make sure that we set a good standard and we set a good example for the rest of the world. And that means that we need to bring everybody into compliance and level the playing field and ensure the success of our legal licensed producers and our legal retailers. So that would be what I would hope, the regulator focuses more of their attention on, which is ensuring, compliance on the black market, gray market side of things.
Well, that's a great answer, and it would really be wonderful if we could accomplish some of those goals together as the communities work together and the regulators work together to see that success for everyone. Let's shift a little bit to personal cannabis consumption. Do you consume cannabis?
Oh, Linda, of course. I have my own opinions on that, but
Yep.
we're retailers,
Yep.
and the most important thing for us to understand, most important things for us to understand are our customers first
Hmm.
and our products second.
Hmm.
And really challenging time to go out there and pretend you're a retailer if you don't understand either. So yes, I do love me some cannabis.
Okay, great. So what's you got a favorite product that you're enjoying right now?
Oh, that's a good question. Subway Scientist by Riff is my go-to. I'm a Granddaddy Purple fan. It's my favorite strain. 48 North. Shout out to 48 North. They've also done a nice job on their pre-roll there.
Hmm.
But for me, I think there's not enough Granddaddy Purple in the market. So any licensed producers listening right now, please grow some Granddaddy Purple.
Great. So you love to consume cannabis. You have a favorite strain. Take us back to your personal connection with cannabis. When did that start, and how did that come to be?
Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't really gone down this path, so bear with me. Listen, like many, let's say, Canadian teenagers, I, experimented with cannabis in high school and in university. It was pretty much a staple. And then that kind of fell off for me, got married early and had kids early. And so it wasn't really a consideration for me. It wasn't part of my life, in my early mid-20s. But when I started working for famous brands, a gentleman I really respected, who was my former VP of sales, brought me in as employee number one. That's how I got started with High Tide back in 2016, selling bongs and pipes and vaporizers for Snoop Dogg. At that point, I realized very quickly that I needed to get myself back in the culture. So actually at that time, I visited a doctor and had a conversation around some of it was interesting because and I don't really know, even just sitting here, know how I can talk about this and ensure that I'm not making any sort of medical claims. But I visited a doctor
Hmm.
and was just chatting with that person about some personal anxiety, some personal sleeping issues, and he prescribed cannabis to me. So I became a Broken Coast and a Med Relief patient at the time, and I wasn't suffering crippling anxiety by any stretch of the imagination. I wasn't suffering crippling insomnia by any stretch of the imagination. But those things were in my life, as they are in the life of many young professionals who are working extremely long hours and care a lot about what they do, right? And I was actually floored, coming back into cannabis, having previously been exclusively recreational, like, let's enjoy this on the weekend the same way we would a 2-4 a beer, to, hey, I'm a little older and how is this going to impact my quality of life? And discovering that I loved microdosing. I loved strains that were, really powerful for inducing sleep and also, quelling a little bit of that, let's call it anxiety or obsessive compulsive thinking about work all the time disorder, right? And that just reinforced my love of this industry. Early days, again, it was all about accessories, and especially as I got an opportunity to start working on the Canna Cabana side of things and growing that brand, it's been an amazing ride because it really lines up with my belief in the plant and what its applications are for people from a recreational to the other side of the equation. And I'm just really grateful that I live in a country that allows me to be part of this. So.
Well, that's amazing. Well, thank you for sharing your personal journey and your personal experience. It's great to know that you're a medical patient as well and that you saw, great benefits from that. So that's wonderful. Thanks a lot for joining us today, Andy. Really enjoyed the conversation. We're certainly looking forward to seeing what happens with Canna Cabana moving forward. And I'm sure we can expect to see lots of Canna Cabanas pop up in Ontario. If the audience that's following, if you haven't already, please find us on social. Our handle is at CanCamBuzz, and you'll find us on all platforms. Once again, Andy, thank you very much.
Thanks, Linda. Have a great day.
You too. Talk soon.